Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 340 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here, and I am excited for this episode because while typically I am not the one chasing the news story, I'm not the one breaking any news articles or being the one to share the information, I have to say, having had the opportunity to do this today, I really enjoyed it and loved being the one to ask the questions that we've all been wondering about how exactly the announcement that happened just last week, which was that Oiselle and Janji were coming together in a partnership of equals. And what did that even mean? It was unlike anything that we have seen in the running apparel space. And I felt so excited to hear that news because knowing that both of these brands are mission driven, seeing the good that they do in our space, in our world, and what does that mean for the future? So I am honored that I had the opportunity today to speak to both Sally Bergesen and Dave Spandorfer together in the first podcast interview they have done about this. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, both of those people have been on the podcast before. Sally was episode 35 back in November 2017, and Sally is currently the business and brand strategy advisor for Oiselle. She's also the founder of Oiselle, kind of a big deal there. She's passionate about entrepreneurship, storytelling, brand building, and advocating for women's rights. I really admire the way that Sally continues to speak up and speak out for women and just pushes us forward to make change happen. Also joined by Dave Spandorfer, who is the co-founder and CEO of Janji, which Janji links runners with exploring and giving back. They raise awareness and fund solutions for a crisis that affects over 700 million people worldwide. 2% of all of Janji's proceeds go to their non-profit partners worldwide. So both doing some amazing things here. I'm not going to give any more away. We went deep into this decision, into what that means, and I asked some difficult questions, and I was so thankful for the answers that they gave and the heart that they have put out there by doing so. So let's get to it. Thank you to Örlö for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. And you have heard me talking about Örlö for a few months now. And as I have been taking it for about 3 months, I am really enjoying and appreciating that I can take care of my cardiovascular health, my circulatory health, my recovery post-exercise. I'm also taking care of my heart health, my brain health, all critical things in our lives, but especially as runners. And while I am a vegetarian, I am especially important for this because vegans and vegetarians are generally deficient in omega-3s because we don't consume fish or animal products that have DHA and EPA in them. I know now that I'm getting those omega-3s that are really allowing me to not only see the improvements within my running, but also within the gym that I am now doing twice a week, back strength training and feeling good about it. DHA is used in every single cell of your body, and they're involved in cellular energy production, and they support recovery after exercise. So really critical things that we should be looking at. And again, as Örlö uses algae, this is a sustainably made source of omega-3s, and they are absorbed 3 times better than fish oils or the other algae oils because they are using a polar lipid form. Now, you're going to hear a little bit more about this in the coming weeks. I just want to remind you to go check out Örlö. You will get 12% off when you go to orlonutrition.com/discount/Tina. You can also just use the link in the show notes. Örlö is spelled ORLO, nutrition.com. And again, if you use that link in the show notes, you can just straight away get that 12% discount. This is a product that many of us need in our lives, especially if you are someone who is maybe not getting enough through animal or fish products, and also if sustainability is important to you. Go check it out now. Sally, Dave, welcome back to the Running for Real podcast. I'm not sure I ever envisioned you both being on here together, but I absolutely love it. And welcome back. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. We're here to make new visions come true.
Absolutely. It's great. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Sally, I was looking back. You were one of my first episodes. I interviewed you in November 2017. So we were saying it'd been years. It had been many years.
Yeah.
That was a while ago. I didn't even have a child at that point. So that's my life was very different in that moment to what it is right now.
Well, that's great, because I thought you'd been doing it for years. So that shows that you were already smooth sailing.
So, I think sometimes it feels that way, as with everyone. Other times it's a literal mess of nothing being smooth whatsoever. So thank you. As Dave can attest to with a newborn. Well, I guess newborn is still, what's the newborn age? Up to 8 months, 9 months?
I think we're in the infancy. So I've got a baby who's 4 months old now, and so we're in sort of that weird phase in between. I think like getting no sleep and getting just a little bit of sleep, and so
it really messes you up.
It is, and it's also sort of like, we part of how this all came together, sort of the marriage between Janji and Oiselle happened right around the time when we had a baby. And so I feel like there's two births happening here, in which we feel very lucky to be part of both.
Or was it that you were like, it's too easy to just take care of a newborn baby.
Totally.
I'm going to make my life 10 times more complicated and change both parts of my life.
That's right. Lots of gestation periods.
Exactly.
There's got to be some symbolism there, because that's quite perfect, actually. Okay, so then you just broke the news to where I what brought this episode together, the reason you two are both on here. You did announce last week that both Janji and Oiselle were coming together in a partnership of equals to join forces. And so I want to begin by having you, whoever wants to take this, explain what exactly does that mean? If someone would have, seen a clickbaity headline somewhere, but not actually read into it, or maybe haven't heard anything, what does that mean, a partnership of equals? So, Dave.
It's a great question. And actually, as I answer, I think back to the first time that I was on this podcast, which was in, I think it was 2019. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the podcast this morning again, and I remember I actually mentioned that I talked to Sally.
Did you really?
The previous week. I did. And you and I were talking about how hard it is to start a running brand, as a running apparel brand, especially, you're a new entrepreneur, think that you're alone. And the point that we were making in that is that it's all easier if you're able to do it together, right? If you're able to sort of have that person you can talk to, this mentor who you can ask questions to. And Sally, for me, has been in many ways that mentor. And I know Sally initially introduces this idea of, right, like of a pace group, and you're able to do things together, even as your individual brands, but you're able to do it in a way that makes you both better. And I learned from Sally so many things sort of over the years, whether it was emailing Sally in 2012 or speaking with her in 2019, the week before I spoke with you. And that is very much like how we're looking at this, right? These are two independent brands, right? We are going to run one in Seattle, one in Boston. One is buy-in for women athlete. One is a brand that's focusing on inspiration from different countries, giving back clean water, sustainable gear, right? Great missions, but we want to keep those missions separate and still stay true to who we are, who both brands are, and just make it more Oiselle, make it more Janji. And for me, like Dave, like I'm going to be entirely focused on Janji, right? Like I am going to be here in Boston, work with our amazing team that we have here and continue to get better, but still having that pace group aspect and learning from each other and being better by being together.
Mm-hmm. Sally, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I totally agree with some of those early memories of meeting Dave for the first time, meeting Mike for the first time. And it really was different than meeting other people in business around running and around running brands. And they were just so friendly.
They are.
And I mean, yeah, I'm not going to mention the names of other brands that we compete against, but we know that, it tends to be very much an elbows out experience, right? Like you're getting spiked, you're getting jabbed in the boob, you're getting, so, just to meet these guys that had such a, they were very eager, had very friendly outlook, really seemed to love the sport for all of the reasons that people who love the sport, do, which is the community, which is the friendship. And so anyway, I thought that was really refreshing from early on. And that definitely stuck in my mind over the years until, later when we did evolve things a bit and start having fat chats, as my friend Missy Park likes to say.
I love that. That's so good. I've never heard of that, but I like that. I'm going to use that. So this is about collaboration, about working together, keeping true to who you are, which is in many ways echoes what we should be doing as human beings, right? We should fully grow into the person we want to be, fully be ourselves, but also be in community, which I know also is a key part, a massive passion for both brands is your communities. So you've got the Voile, right? Oh, no, I should have practiced that.
You got it.
I started overthinking myself there. And then the collective with Janji. And that's how we should be living as humans. But it's, as you said, Sally, it's not the typical way of doing things. There's a lot, we still struggle within the running space, but within a broader community of recognizing how powerful we can be and how much change we can make when we do collaborate with others, when we do work with our strengths, but also support one another at the same time. Mm-hmm. Sally, as you've been in this space for such a long time at this point, what are your thoughts on why that does seem so rare, that Mike and Dave were so, like you said, nice and welcoming and just wanting to collaborate with other people?
Why aren't there more nice guys in the world? Big question, Tina.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, I think early on we were so eager and excited to be in the running space, and honestly, building a brand in running was like a dream come true for me. It really was kind of the coming together of my two passions, which were marketing and branding and design, as well as the sport that I feel, had saved my life. And so everything was new and beautiful and wonderful. And I wanted to talk to as many people and gather as many teammates and build a community and the excitement. So to be honest, the elbows out from competitors was actually kind of a surprise. And that was what led to some of our more pointed moments that we had with Nike and with, people that essentially were looking for ways to keep the small brands out. And it was a, painful and surprising lesson, and just never always kind of were scratching your head, because with that ethos of keeping others out and keeping athletes down, for example, it's the sport loses, right? The community loses, athletes lose. I mean, it's no surprise because I've been very vocal about it over the years, but I believe that the sport of track and field on a professional level is very, very broken. And it is in a system that has been controlled and designed by the very powerful commercial capitalistic forces that also control the governing body. And with that conflict of interest comes a whole bunch of ripple effect problems that have, and I think, and then it's more harmful for women, more harmful for people of color, more harmful for folks, more harmful for small brands like Dave's brand and like Oiselle that, should be able to exist, should be able to be in this ecosystem of sport without, being singled out and iced out and kind of prevented from growing. So why it is the way it is, I mean, that's also a deep question, but I think fight the power, right? Like we're here to fight the power and make sure that we have a place, in the race. And that's absolutely a big thing that attracted us to each other, is like the knowledge that we were both fighting for that ability to be in the sport and in the industry.
Yeah, I love that. Although I want to pause a second here and just describe for the listeners what I was seeing there. Sally was kind of doing an example of like a empowering, motivating like speech, and Dave was embodying the lead person at the front who's like, woohoo, yeah, like,
let's go.
It was pretty cool to watch that. I could see Dave. You were going to be the hype up person if Sally is to do a tour.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tina, because I'll just add another thing in that it is rare to find other business people that do vibe on that. I shared with Dave and with Mike and the team that it is, as a women-led brand, a lot of people are afraid of that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are scared by women's power, quite frankly. And so to meet people that vibed on it and, had Dave say, I want it. Yeah. I love seeing you stick it to the man. And I'm like, well,
we do. Yeah.
We friends.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dave, I don't know.
Yeah. Dave, go for it.
Look, I think we all admire what Sally's done for the sport, what she'll continue to do for this sport, sort of what Oiselle has been able to sort of like have this very much this insurgent brand that does challenge. And I think what's so cool is that the team over at Oiselle is now going to be doing even more of that, right? As we're able to sort of share the more boring stuff, right? The accounting, the finance, the legal stuff that just like you have to do as part of running a business, the logistics, right? These are things now that we can sort of, what the team at Oiselle in Seattle is going to, be even more stick it to the man, right? Be even more of what Sally's talking about, which is trying to create this change. And, we at Janji, right? Like I've always been a cheer of what Oiselle is doing, right? No, we at Janji take a little bit different approach, right? Like we're not really focused on track and field as much. We're more about the exploring piece in terms of like not even talking really about racing. That's not who we are. But that's okay, right? Like what gets me so excited about this partnership is we're able to sort of like be those chairs. Like Janji might not have a place in the Olympic trials in Eugene, but or in Orlando, right, for the marathon trials. But you could make sure that Oiselle is going to have that, right? And I'm so excited to cheer all the amazing ladies who are going to be supporting Oiselle, wearing Oiselle, and really I think doing amazing things under the bird uniform. And this partnership allows us for Janji leaning more on the exploring piece, leaning more in terms of like developing sort of the unique sustainable fabrics that we're going to be able to sort of, share learnings across different brands. And Oiselle, it's going to be amazing, I think, sort of the advocacy that continue to be pushed from the brand. We're just really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this earlier about it's just more of Oiselle, more of Janji. It just taking out our lives today exist with paperwork and all these little steps that we have to take, whatever we do, that are just part of living today. But by sharing those and allowing you to put more energy into the bits that really matter, that's how change comes about. And it's the way that you view things, and it's I just felt so excited when I saw this, because I thought, wow, what a good example of just collaboration and how we can all do what we want to do, care about what we care about. And as much as that, I know you saw that, Sally, I think I saw you write on, you both wrote on it, the Laura Green video.
So good.
So good. That was such a, probably what most people were wondering, and in a funny way of doing it. But that's exactly it, that you can continue to care about what you care about while also working together to help support each other through that, which I think is just beautiful. What does that actually look like in terms of that? What you were just saying there about Dave, like supporting one another moving forward when you do have such not opposing, but very much like different directions to where you're headed in and what is most important. What does that look like as this evolution continues to take place?
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting is just like how few Oiselle, customers have ever bought from Janji. That's okay, right? Only 4% of Oiselle customers have ever bought from Janji. We're okay keeping it that way, right? How we see this brand is a really small version. This partnership is a very small version of, and they've got all sorts of other problems, as Sally knows, is a Nike and Converse, right? One's based in Boston, one's based in the Northwest. They're both part of the same umbrella, but they feel very different, right? The Converse customer doesn't buy from Nike, and the Nike customer doesn't buy from Converse, and again, all sorts of other issues there. But what we want to do with this is to ensure that that creative, that marketing, that community piece has those different places, right? If you're part of the collective community, you can be part of Olay and vice versa. Oh, so cool when we announced this to the collective community. So many people said, hey, these are my two favorite brands coming together because these are two mission-focused brands. And what's so unique is, I think, with this partnership is that there, unfortunately, are very few mission-focused brands. There are so many brands that might be focusing on the bottom line or making boring gear and squeezing out every little margin, right, that they can get to make a cheap running short. That's not what this is about. This is about how do we create something bigger that really builds on the legacy that Janji's building, what Sally has built and continues to build, right? And we want to keep those missions, those focus, eye on the ball. If you're in Seattle, right, like that mission is day to day baked into what you're doing. And if you're in Boston, like we are focusing on that exploring, that connecting, that giving clean water and sustainability piece. Those are both extremely slightly differentiated mission, but still the world needs both, and we need the advocacy around both.
Thank you. Sally, what would you say from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think in business today, there's a lot of examples of I'll use the word collective, like groups of brands that, have that ability to rely on each other, learn from each other, and are stronger together. So it's definitely not a new model, and it's a proven model. And so, I think it's just, it's a great way to extend the reach and the power and the unique voices of each of these brands. But have that, like Dave and I almost had it unofficially. We'd call each other or write each other to ask about a question. But sometimes you're a little bit like, well, I can't share too much because, they are still a competitor. And now in a way, it's like we can do that fully and freely and truly be learning from each other. And plus, I love the East Coast, West Coast. I think we should even do either a relay or a rivalry, track meet, or I don't know, something fun. Why
don't you do a relay to St. Louis? Meet in the middle,
to St. Louis, exactly. Yeah, gateway to America. Yeah.
I'm going to advocate for anything that comes through here because, as Dave knows, as much as I thought when I moved here that St. Louis was the place people come to, no one ever comes here. So
people should go. I mean, I think this is to sort of tie in this analogy with, I went to Washington University in St. Louis, right? And while there, we had a men's team and we had a women's team, but we had such collaboration. I mean, look, the teams competed separately, right? One was in a men's race, one was in a women's race, but we had the same coach. We talked about being the same family. And my co-founders used this analogy before is when the men's team was running, like the women's team was cheering for us. The women's team was running, the men's team was cheering for us. Like we can be the same family. And many of the lessons that I learned in St. Louis, right, where I had my co-founder, we think of today, right? And I actually, the Washington University and St. Louis team was actually competing in a race in Boston this past weekend. And being there, seeing that energy, seeing that cheering, seeing sort of the pushing each other, I think was totally, harken back to not only there, but also this coming together. Like we see a lot of the same analogies and we see a lot of the benefits that can come from being our biggest supporters of each other.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for partnering with Running for Real and myself and allowing us to continue the work that we are doing. Now, today, I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. This time of year, it is especially important to consider this because not only are you getting 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients, this comprehensive nutrition in one single scoop, which is how I start my day every day. Even if I'm going immediately out the door on a run, it doesn't upset my stomach. It just is an ideal way to start my day. You're also building a daily habit in 1 minute, and it's going to promote your gut health, support your immunity, boost your energy, and more. Not only those things, but with your order, when you sign up through my code by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina, you are going to get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2 plus 5 free travel packs. The vitamin D element is so important this time of year for most of us. We are coming into the winter. This is a time when our vitamin D levels drop. And if you let your vitamin D levels drop too much, it's going to wreak havoc with your training and with your life. It really is so important for us to keep that, as we are not getting the vitamin D exposure from the sun. And I love that Athletic Greens has decided that they are going to give us the opportunity to put those two things together so you have everything you need in one scoop. I love having it every morning. I know it is going to take care of my gut, take care of my immunity, boost my energy, and help with recovery through superfoods, adaptogens, and antioxidants. It's like your insurance policy. So no matter what you eat in that day, you know you have given your body nutrient-dense foods, you have taken care of it, and you can go about your day and enjoy this season. So go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to check it out. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina. Love hearing that. Thank you. And that's such a good example of another way of looking at that, because that is so true. And also not for everyone. I mean, you don't see that at every school where the men's and the women's team are like a family that do support one another. So it is, just models life as well. Okay, so I have to know, how did this finally come about to where it was, if we were a fly on the wall of the conversation, like you said you'd kind of somewhat been talking about it over the years, but like, who brought it up and what did that conversation look like? Because that's quite a lot of vulnerability to do that. So, yeah.
Yes. So this idea initially actually came, we had been talking for a bit. I talked to Sally for years, but I also talked to Atsuko, AT, over at Oiselle for years. And I remember distinctly walking around University Village for, I think, like 4 hours with her, just talking about life, talking about, people come together. And it was right around, I think, in the fall when Sally and I and Atsuko sort of had those conversations in like even more granular detail. We just realized it's like, okay, we have the same systems for pretty much everything, right? We've got the same inventory system. We have the same payroll system. We have the same accounting system. Mm-hmm. We have like going down the list. And then we also have the same shared factory. Now we produce with different fabrics. We work with different designs, of course, but we have all these things that are very similar to each other. And does it make sense to do something in a bigger way, right? And it was right around in the fall season, and things really came to a head actually around the due date for when my wife and I had a baby, that this all came together. And it was a process that once it started, it really clicked, and things really started to escalate from there.
Yeah, I agree. Like it just kind of gradually, escalated and got more serious. But I think also, for Oiselle, we were thinking along these lines of like, what's next for us? How do we continue to grow? How do we, find, we were thinking about those things, like who would be a great, partner for us in terms of helping us do more, which every business needs, right? You need to grow in order to survive. And so when we were thinking about, what different people, organizations, investors, just looking at the whole gamut, this relationship really started to shine through in terms of one of the most promising options. And I will say that I think it is because of the relationship factor and the authenticity factor. Oiselle and Janji are in this space for a lot of the same reasons, even though we are very different brands. So that really meant a lot in terms of thinking that through. And then, as my role has shifted now, from, being the day-to-day lead at Oiselle to being an advisor and being, somebody who will continue to be in this journey in terms of advocating for all the things that Oiselle has always stood for. I think that just felt like a really important shift for me personally as well. And I think, it's important for me to say that I want to normalize change for people too. Like last year was a tough year for me. My dad passed away in February, and I took a sabbatical also to just, heal from some things. And, that was factored in as well. And it was, so I'm really grateful for having had that space and that time. I also want to give Atsuko Tamura, our president, a huge shout out, because I think one thing that's scary being a leader of a business is, do you have the team in place to give you that space and time that you might need depending on what happens. So that was kind of happening all at the same time as well. And so it also to me seemed like, yes, a promising step forward for the brand, a great set of people to be in a deeper relationship with, and also an opportunity for me to do what I'm best at, which is to be a really vocal champion for women, for the brand, for women in sports, and to really focus on what I'm best at. So that's kind of ended up being like the best of all worlds there.
Sally, how hard was that for you to step into that more advisor role with, all that you had built in Oiselle? Did you find that difficult to start to, to take your, I guess, to pass over the reins to, know that Oiselle was ready for this next step in terms of, you stepping away as CEO? Like, tell us about that decision, because I haven't talked to you since that.
Yeah. Yes and no. My attachment to Oiselle is deep, right? It's the inception, it's the story, it's all the chapters. So, but the nice thing about that, I guess sort of where I came to a big epiphany and a realization is like, that never goes away, right? Like you never lose that attachment and that story and that history. And in fact, like adding a next chapter is really exciting. So, and I'm a creative and a designer. And so I think for creative people, it's also really important to have new chapters to kind of sink your teeth into. And change is actually really important because you need to kind of keep the home fire burning in terms of just creativity. And so I'm less fearful of change maybe than some people just naturally. I tend to enjoy it. Having said that, yes, this is a deep, deep attachment and something I care so much about, but that was all the more reason why this felt like a good fit. And just that, this wasn't Oiselle being sold to the circus, and then me like phoning in to worry about what's going on with my children. Don't sell your children to the circus.
Thank you for that. Was change, handling change, working through change, embracing change, was that something you were always good at appreciating, or is that something you've worked through as you've done it in life?
Well, I love the phrase, people don't mind change, but they don't like to be changed. So I think that's, really, that's just like a good way to think about it. I've been my own boss for a long time. So in many ways, I've kind of been in charge of my own change. So, so that's maybe why I love it. But, I think that also speaks to running a company, right? Like helping people elevating people and letting them do their best work and be in charge of their own change, as well as the change that the organization wants to represent and wants to be in the world. Was I always great at that? No. I often wanted I had a vision for something and would want it executed the way I thought best. So I don't want to elevate myself as the perfect example of doing that right. But in general, I think change is really healthy, and I like to embrace it where I can.
Sure. Dave, anything to add on that as you've had change too?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what makes me so excited is that, Sally will be continuing, of course, as founder and having roles and maybe coming out to Boston and doing events. Like, Sally will always be the founder and, in many ways is the heart and soul. And Sally, of course, as you have a big ownership stake of this combined company. Mm-hmm. I think, how we see that change is I agree. Like Janji, we need to always change and grow and adjust. And for this new adventure, what we're trying to keep in mind most is the community, right? Mm-hmm. How do we continue to grow, but how do we listen and care and, take feedback from the Janji collective community for Janji? And how do we as Volet listen and give even more sort of focus to Volet and building that and sort of strengthening what makes it that, staying true to who we are while at the same time growing, adjusting, and sort of taking that next level up? Because I think change is usually good, right? But it's all about keeping the essence of who you are and scaling, expanding by that. I mean, just in terms of Janji, we were a class project in college, right? and we made flag-based shirts, and we made, gave back to different places, and we made products in places that, the super ethical, but maybe the quality wasn't the best. And over time, we've changed how we design our stuff. We focus on one place. We changed how we give. We focus to clean water. And, we changed, we adjusted the Janji collective. It's now a huge part of what we do. And we are super proud in terms of that evolution. But for Oiselle, Sally is such the heartbeat of what it is. And so keeping that center of gravity, right? Sally always being the founder, but sort of taking that next level. I think the team over at Oiselle is really taking to it. And Sally mentioned Atsuko, major props, I think, to the entire Oiselle team over there. I mean, what an amazing group of women who have really helped build something super special. And I know they're all super excited by this next chapter and being able to sort of say, all right, let's take some of the things that are really boring that we talked about and sort of take that off of our shoulders and have this sort of combined piece, but focus on that creative, that marketing, that product. And us at Janji, we're also really excited about that too. It's okay, get rid of the stuff that's really slogging through and push on that inspiration piece. I think that's where it just, as a creative, I'll be honest, I designed our first ever running shorts. I wouldn't describe myself as the best creative, although I'm passionate about it. I think I know our creative teams at Janji are just super excited to get even deeper in that piece as well and pull new inspiration from a new exciting chapter.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I want to talk about community in just a minute, just to go into that and why that is so important to both of you and why that even just saying that is different to many of the other brands in the space. But you just made me think about, okay, so one thing that I had been wondering about the two is, and I just read Christine Yu's book, Up to Speed, which comes out in a few months. And it's all about the science of women athletes and just the research that's happening, the conversations that are happening. And it made me wonder, with the two brands that you are, as you said, you're both mission driven. You are both very, outspoken about the things that matter to you. You are fiercely, you know who you are, and you're fiercely protecting that. I would love to hear your take on the kind of conversations that are happening. Oiselle is obviously women-led, women-focused, creating things that fit women's bodies. And Janji, Dave, having a few friends who are either non-binary or are trans or are in the queer community who felt like Janji is the brand that best embodies the kind of gender-neutral clothing they are looking for.
That's great.
How do you both work with that, knowing that it's kind of two very different directions or paths or whatever it might be that are kind of opposing, kind of not, but also, how does that work together? Because I'm assuming this has been something that's come up. So, David, I don't know if you want to begin with that,
Sure.
just as,
Yeah, I mean, part of it comes down to just, to your point, like knowing who you are, who is your target customer. We want all people to feel comfortable wearing Janji gear, but you can't design for all people, right? Like it's just not, I think, how you develop a great brand. And so, our creative team here in Somerville, right outside of Boston, like, we have this very clear idea of who our customer is. We call it our explorer runner. This is someone who uses running as, they run 4 days a week. They live in like a gateway city, sort of like a Bozeman or Bend or Burlington. They love to, maybe they do one long run a week. They run 3 other days a week. Like they have a dog, right? Thinking about who exactly that person is, right? And, we don't really assign like a gender to that person. So I'm really glad to hear that we have that, more people, whether, no matter your gender, you feel comfortable wearing Janji, like that's important. But knowing who that runner is. I mean, there's like over 40 million runners. You do not want to make gear for all 40 million of them, right? But we feel super comfortable, whether you're a extra small or 2XL, that you feel comfortable wearing Janji gear. We want that to happen. But that specificity of design, I think, is very important for our team. And we do not want Oiselle to sort of take that, or our team to take what Oiselle does. And so maybe you can speak to how you think about design. I mean, this original short came from you, and I know it's evolved in a lot of ways, but I know you just have a great perspective on this.
Yeah, I think for sure we've, having led the design team at Oiselle is both like a joy and an honor, and such complex, fit and size grading, and making sure that the product is working, not just, from a measurement standpoint, but actually on real bodies. And I think that's one thing that I'm really proud of Cami, our design lead, of doing at Oiselle, in terms of working with wear testers of different sizes to make sure that the product fit. Because, not to get too much into the weeds of size grading, but it's really, sometimes people think of it as, you take a base size and then you just scale it up and you go through all the sizes and go up to 24, 26. It's such an art. And I would say specifically for women's bodies tend to be so much, no offense, Dave, but they have a lot more shapes and, places where size changes. And so it's a very complex topic. And I think the reality is you can't solve it for everyone, to Dave's point, unfortunately. Yeah. I wish we could custom make the most beautiful running, outfit for every single person that wants to run. But you try to do as best you can to be as inclusive as you can.
Yes.
And that's really been part and parcel of Oiselle's design team mission for a while now. And we talk about this, everybody being invited to the transformative power of sport, as kind of a very important kind of linchpin of how we look at design and product.
Hi friends, just a really quick message to let you know, if you have not yet checked out our Red S recovery resource for free, 50 videos for free on YouTube. I hope you know by now that I'm not doing this to make money or to sell things to you. I literally am doing this because it is a passion of mine. It is important to me, and I knew how broken I felt. If there is anything in your running that feels off, and regardless of your weight, of your size, of your speed, of your gender, of the amount of miles you do per week, Red S can affect anyone and everyone. And I encourage you to go listen to it. Go watch those videos. They're short videos with experts, me asking the questions that people have asked me over the years. And it's really powerful. I'm really proud of what we made there. So go head over to YouTube, our Running for Real YouTube channel. You can find that by searching my name or for Running for Real, and you will find it. Go check it out and share it. that's the biggest thing I want to do. Just get it out there to people who need it, because I know how rough it is when you feel that way. So let's get back to what we were up to, but just wanted to let you know about that. Yeah. And, you know, that is absolutely abundantly clear in the products that you create. You know, every item I have of Oiselle, I have absolutely felt has fit so well. And while I would say maybe I have the kind of former textbook women's body from, you know, before we recognize that actually, as you said, there are bodies of all shapes and sizes that need to be accustomed to, and it's not like I just make it bigger and it will be okay. But it's clear how much thought and intention goes into every item with regards to fitting various shapes and sizes within women's bodies.
So I think, you know, we have a lot to learn at Janji from Oiselle in terms of how that is, and that all, I know the team over there is passionate about that staying the same, you know, ensuring bringing in multiple different types of sizes and models and ensuring there is that inclusivity in terms of different body types. And that's a piece that we're, you know, bringing up Cami again. I know our head of product over here at Janji, Britt Recate, and Cami talked for like 2 hours heavily about that, right? And that's just one small example about how much we at Janji can learn from Oiselle, and having sort of, you know, this open doors between the two different brands, despite them being, you know, separate. There can be such shared learnings that make both of us better, because I think Oiselle is so strong at ensuring that there is bringing more people into this sport, no matter their body type.
Thank you for that. Sally, is there anything that kind of right off the bat you were picking up from Janji that you were learning and taking into practice with Oiselle?
Yeah, I love the spirit of adventure ethos of the brand. And it actually reminded me of, I had a conversation with Lauren Fleshman once about an organization that's called, it's a yoga specific organization, but it's called Off the Mat and Into the World. And we talked a lot about this idea of off the mat and into the world, because it's basically like taking your yoga practice and not having that be the end of the goodness that you find either in yourself and others, and actually using that in whatever areas you might be living out, whether that's in your work or in your family or in your community. And I think running is very similar to that. So I almost was like, Lauren, could I use after the run and into the world? Because I love that same ethos. And I think Janji is embodying that spirit of adventure and taking, you know, essentially, how do we take these learnings from the sport of running that we're given every time that we put on our shoes and have that experience, and take it out and create that goodness elsewhere. And I really love that. So we're gonna, steal from them a little bit and just, continue to talk about, just that theme of the goodness and the ripple effects that the sport can have.
Yeah. And that's the amazing gift that you have for each other, is that both brands can, it's funny you use the word steal, Sally, because it kind of isn't that anymore. Maybe that would be the word someone would use for two quote unquote like elbows out competitor brands, but not in this situation. And that's the amazing thing, is that, as we've been talking about this whole conversation, it makes both brands better. And therefore makes, people feel welcome and exactly what you've both been talking about. People who have formerly been made to feel like they weren't a runner because they didn't run enough to be considered one, or they weren't a runner because they were not a size 2 with a tiny chest. It all works together. So thank you for sharing that. I want to get into community here. We've mentioned a few times that Volet and the collective are both very big parts of who both brands are. And again, that is something that's quite different in that you do have that focus. So I'd love to hear from each of you why, when it became clear, what was that realization you mentioned earlier about epiphany, Sally? What was the moment you recognized that was such an important piece of who you wanted to be? So Sally, maybe you can go first.
In terms of Oiselle, the brand from early on?
Well, like the Volet and having a community, why was that such an important piece?
Yeah.
Not just customers.
Well, I would say Oiselle was conceived on a group run, literally, a group of 6, 7 women runners who I'd been running with for years. And, we're running along and I'm like, guys, running shorts, let's talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everybody's like, oh yeah, I know they're terrible. Like what, why? But, and you just go, go, go. So, I think running community, running friends, training, racing, being together has been part of my life story, essentially, ever since I found running. So I think I always imagined when I envisioned kind of a brand that community has to be a part of it. It's like kind of non-negotiable. It would seem like such a loss and like you're aiming way too low if you're just making a product and just trying to sell it. It's so I just never had any doubt in my mind as to, the volet developed in a very like iterative way over the years. First it was just kind of like traditional, like if you go fast here, we'd like to give you some clothes, that kind of thing. And then evolved to much more of a community-based, wide-reaching, far-flung universe of women in a much more beautiful and inclusive way than that original model of go fast here, let us give you clothes. So
yes.
Yeah.
All about that. Dave, what about you?
Yeah. So, Sally mentioned that Oiselle started on a group run. Janji started on the bus ride to a track meet in college. We literally started typing ideas about creating Janji on that bus ride. And, shout out to Liz Harmon, Tina, I know you're a friend who was on that bus, and there was a assistant coach, Steph Kelly, who is helping us out. And we sort of talked to multiple different people about this idea. And that idea evolved over the summer into bringing on new people onto our team, right, who helped us develop this plan. And we entered into a business plan competition, and we were in a class that helped guide us through this idea. But it really was about community and getting sort of that feedback. And we had so many wonderful advisors and mentors who helped out over the years. Everything from I think today, Wendy Yang from Hoka has been a great advisor for us. But from the beginning, Ben Rosario, who's now at Northern Arizona Elite, who's my first boss at Big River Running Company, gave idea. Matt Helbig, who's started a race management company in St. Louis and Big River Running Company, learned so much from them. It was really about that collective feedback. And so it just made sense to create a collective at Janji, who today gives us sort of that feedback. And it's everything from asking, okay, community, do you want to have a this type of bag or this type of bag as you sort of develop for future seasons, and learning from their feedback, or going around trips from around the world, whether it's in Patagonia or Flagstaff, using running as a way to explore and doing that as part of the community. Or it could be, I know Justine Fajodic, who's going to be the designer for our new French West Indies line. She's traveling around the country helping to talk to different REI stores, who's a great partner for our brand, and telling them a bit about the new French West Indies line, the inspiration, how it gives back. And she's going to be meeting Janji collective people all around the country in these different places. That she goes everywhere from San Mateo to Durham, North Carolina, and everything in between. And so we really do believe that this is a collective sport, right? It can feel like when you're out there on a run, you're there alone. But when you're part of that community, of course, on a training run, you can go faster. But also when you're part of a wider community, it could be running for real. I know it's like you learn so much and you become so much, I think, wiser for it. And getting through injuries, finding the right races is all about that larger body. And so both brands sort of tapping into that and sort of focusing in on that in their respective communities, I think is what really has allowed the companies to get to where they're at, but also will allow the brand to flourish. It's really about us just listening.
Yes, so true. And I've heard stories from friends of both brands doing exactly that, like communities, not just your own communities, but also communities who are trying to do something important with whatever passion or identity or group that is important to them. And you've been supportive and allowed them to, the opportunity, like Sally, the bras for girls. The Are you still doing that? The buy one, get one? Is that still?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess if you want to explain, you're probably going to be more succinct than I will.
Oh, yeah, no, Bras for Girls, which is now its own independent 501c3 led by Dr. Sarah Lesko, is, an incredible program. And I think they've donated now over 30,000 sports bras to middle school girls in need. And so, yeah, it's, I think another thing that we like to say when we're talking about community is we had this phrase, the gold is in the room, in the sense that also we've met incredible women through the volet. I mean, I've met people who are writing policy in DC. I have people who are leading major like corporate efforts in California. I've met, people whose like resumes are like, just incredible. And so we love this idea of the gold is in the room, and that almost any area, whether it was our industry or others, or, we have a ton of women who are in STEM in the volet. And so it's been so incredible to meet the women that show up on this team, and they're just so interesting and such leaders themselves. And I've learned from them. So the gold is in the room was something we would talk about, especially places like Bird Camp, where we could all be together and meet each other and share those stories personally.
Yeah. Such good examples. Thank you for sharing that. Final thing I want to talk about, it kind of relates to what you were saying there, Sally, in terms of both of the areas that you are passionate in. So Sally, women's rights are under attack right now. Dave, water, well, maybe people don't quite recognize it, is very soon going to become this scarce resource. I know it is in the global south and other places around the world, but here, in the US, in Europe, is not really having its moment, but it's coming to where water scarcity is coming. These conversations around water are coming. There's something to that, the fact that your brands are working together, and that these are areas that are literally critical for generations to come, in terms of the work that you're doing, the missions that you are chasing, the push, the change you're trying to push. I would love for you to just talk to anyone listening who maybe recognizes that these are important points and important focuses, but maybe has been pushing it out of their mind because I just have too much going on. So maybe give your best argument for why these are two areas that we should be paying attention to. So that was such a long-winded answer, but Dave, as you're nodding, I'm going to say that you got what I was trying to get there.
Yes. So I think, you're right. People are busy, right? And there's a lot of issues today. And so, what we want to do with Janji is to do that education, do that giving back in a way that is not necessarily going to be something that you see all the time, that you're always nervous, but it's meaningful. And we are educating in slow, I think, powerful ways, whether it's, newsletters from our site, how we talk about things when we travel around the world, whether it's, I think you make a great point where the world is getting, because of climate change, more arid. People, I think since we got Janji started, there's been incredible progress to getting more access, whether it's in sub-Saharan Africa or, as you mentioned, in the global south, to areas that do not have access to clean water that are getting it now. And that is something to be celebrated. That is something that we at Janji played a very, very, very small part, but a part of it, and that's our community who's giving back. And that burden of water collection does tend to focus on women. There's no doubt, whether it's in our, whether it's in our latest country of Chile, some of these rural areas, that falls on women, right? Whether it's in our new region, which we're launching, the French West Indies, there is major water conservation issues, and that tends to fall on women. And so what we want to do with these places where we're storing is yes, we are about using running as a way to see the world in underseen areas. It could be Chile. It could be, as we talked about last time, Tina, Mexico. It could be Martinique and Guadeloupe in the French West Indies. And knowing that these places just like in the American West, there are significant water issues. We did a great documentary about this reservoir in Chile that literally dried up. And those are conversations that would happen. I think running in itself for so many people is a way of advocacy, right? It could be running the Boston Marathon for some sort of charity, or running a local 5K, or doing a Strava event that breaks more awareness. And these are two brands that I think, oftentimes, subtly, yes, we realize we're selling apparel, and you got to make great apparel to make a difference there. But we want to subtly tell those stories so that people understand it without sort of being flooded with so many things you care about. This is one more way to sort of give back in a meaningful and yet way that helps, allows you to celebrate your own run.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dave. Yeah. Sally?
Yeah, you're right, Tina. Women's rights are under attack, and it's, it's hard. It's been very difficult to feel in many ways like we're going backwards rather than forwards. And, it's so imperative that we learn from the perspectives and stories of women, and that women themselves, whether it's these like the incredible books that are coming out right now. Just recently here in Seattle, Lauren Fleshman was interviewed by Alison Desir, and I wish the world could have sat in that room for that conversation, because they touched on so many incredible topics. But essentially, you have to like rewire your brain. I mean, just the sort of the opening ideas that they're raising and the questions they're asking around the universe, that we are raising girls and expecting women to succeed without having kind of necessarily given the tools or the guidance or the opportunity, or, how to like poke through and kind of ask those hard questions. And so there's just, obviously there's no end to the amount of work that needs to be done, but the more questions we ask and the more stories we share and the more we work together, then the better the chance that, we'll start knocking those barriers down. And so, and again, after the run and into the world, right? That's those things are made more possible by the confidence and strength we find through the sport. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but on a run, do you ever get fired up about like, I don't know, you're wrestling with something in your head and I don't know, it becomes clear, you have a new idea, you get a fresh perspective. And then sometimes I just come home and I'm like, either I have to like scribble it all out in a notebook because I just feel so fired up about what I feel needs to happen, or I need to have or it gives me the confidence to have a conversation with somebody that might be difficult or charged. But the sport always brings that like little defrizzing of the brain where, you get those moments of clarity. So absolutely. I want that for all women and all people. So
yeah. Thank you. And yes, I definitely know that feeling, and I'm sure Dave does too.
Oh yeah. And I'll say too, like, I think what's so great about what Sally has built at Oiselle and continue to work on is this idea of, we want this to always be a women's led company, right? That part's not going to change in women's focus, and that's not going to change. And I realize I'm a dude, and it's always, I want to be an ally here and support sort of that fight against a lot of those rights that have been undercut recently. And so I think Oiselle can be this force for good. And so much of those, Sally said, so much of these ideas come with the run, but I think also, what running allows us to do is to take these problems that seem totally insurmountable and so messy, right? And so I use the word differentiating. I totally agree. It allows us at least to say, like, okay, we might not be able to solve all the world's issues, but a run at least to say, like, we can have that first starting point, right? Of saying, like, these are things that, like, as a community, as a collective, we can attack. And water issues, right, might seem insurmountable. Climate change might seem an issue that cannot be stuffed easily. And there's a lot of incredibly smart people working and caring deeply about this. But, at least those runs allow us to say, okay, what are those first things that we can do to take the next step? And we want both of these brands to just be those, maybe those first steps that do the launching part for so many people. As you mentioned, Sally, the amazing people who are in Volet, who are doing such powerful things to help change the world. And Janji, I know people who are doing philanthropy globally, who are doing work locally that help make that. And I think as communities, bringing each other up to help make that difference together, because it can feel super lonely, right? And as groups, as communities, and as people who are running together, the world feels closer together.
I love that. Beautifully said. And it's amazing, related to both of what you just said there. These problems feel so big, but when you take an action, even if it's the smallest, tiniest thing, even if it's sending some small email that will probably never even get read, like by the act of doing something, and especially when you have people alongside you doing it with you, is so much more empowering and is how change happens. Even if it can feel like, well, this is not going to do anything in the moment. This is, a tiny little dent, but it's something, and it takes it out of your head so that it's not just like swirling around, like driving you crazy, and you're actually doing something about it. So thank you both for that. To wrap here, is there anything else we haven't covered that you would like to share or remind the audience about either of you, or just as individuals?
Yeah. I just to add on the collaboration note, I think that it's tricky with wanting to change the world. Sometimes, activism can often be around tearing things down, right? And it's very easy to tear things down. It's probably and sometimes it's very effective, right? Because it really immediately sheds a light on an issue. It can cast you as the hero, all of those things. But what's much more meaningful is collaboration and working together to create change. And so I think that that's something that is both a very fine line to walk, but also in my reflection on the past of Oiselle, but also the future of Oiselle, is I want to be a collaborator. It doesn't mean that I'm going to always agree with people. It doesn't mean that I'm going to think that something doesn't need to be changed, but I want to contribute to positive movement in the movement. And, I appreciate and respect the fact that Dave and Mike and Matt McAlpin, who's been integral with both the deal and the move forward, that there is that spirit. And so anyway, collaboration over creation over destruction, I guess.
Yes. Love that. Dave?
And, I think as a runner, there's so much value to a training buddy. And in college, my training buddy is my current founder, Mike, who I've been working alongside and running with for 14 years. And what's so cool about this opportunity is that, Oiselle and Janji are going to be brand training buddies, right? We're going to push each other. We're going to do those hard workouts where you're just like, you didn't realize that you could do that last 400 or whatever, that last mile in a long run. And it's easier when you are doing those things together. And so I think as people who run, those long runs alone, or sort of those daily runs, are wonderful and meaningful. But those runs where you're sort of doing it with someone else, those shared memories, those times where you're pushing each other, that's where the really exciting stuff happens. As two builders and believers, a community, we think that two brands coming together expands that and allows us to accomplish amazing things, whether it's with running or with creating really cool gear that I think will continue to inspire and make that small difference to hopefully make the world, a little better.
Yeah. Well, you're both doing it. I admire both of you for all the work that you've done. And thank you for giving me the exclusive. I'm honored, and just really loved our conversation today. Believe in both of you and everyone else involved. But can't wait to see what the future holds. So thanks for joining.
Thanks, Tina. It was great chatting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tina. Thanks, Dave. This was great.
The Running for Real podcast and everything we do here at Running for Real, would not be possible if it wasn't for the Running for Real team. While I am the person who you hear from most often and maybe the face of the brand, the rest of our team are such critical pieces of what we do, and without them, I think I'd just be running around in circles with ideas. So I want to take a moment to thank our team. To Jeremy Nessel, who's been with me since the very beginning, Kat McKay, Sally Pontarelli, Kelsey Wang, Sandy Gutierrez, Louise Murphy, Andrew Basola, Alexandria Will, and Maria Vargas. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you give to Running for Real and our community. I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful for having you as a part of the team. Wow, that was so good. I really loved being the one to really dig into the decision to find out why they did it in the way that they did and what that is going to mean moving forward, as well as how that came about. I kind of been the only one wondering like how that even was brought up in conversation. I am so thankful for both of those humans and their entire teams for all that they do in making our running space a better place. And I, along with many of you, I am sure, look forward to seeing where this goes in the future. Thank you so much for listening today. I encourage you to go to runningforreal.com/episode 340 to go check out the links in our show notes. You will also find links to Athletic Greens, although you can also go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. You will also find links to Got Sneakers, our new partner that we will be using to partner for a shoe recycling program. If you have your used shoes, you can, rather than throwing them into a landfill, you can donate them. You can send them to Got Sneakers. They will either pass them along to someone if they are in good enough condition, or they will recycle them for you. So be sure to go check out that link. And also to Örlö. I've been talking about Örlö and their omega-3s and the importance of that for our heart health and our brain health. And you can go to the link in the show notes to go get a 12% discount there. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.